Hello and welcome to the Weeb Years, your premier destination for background noise while you do the dishes. My name's Beanie.
Do not adjust your set. This is Laurel.
That's such a weird follow-up to what I said. And we're doing our first follow-up episode.
Yippee!
Back I think 13 episodes ago, we covered Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion, and had a little oopsie whoopsie, didn't realize that it was gonna end on a cliffhanger and that the second season was actually a direct follow-up and not just a sequel, and we promised that we would actually cover the second season at some point, and look at us, finally following up on our promises.
No, the cliffhanger was content. We have to die on this hill.
We have to pretend like this was intentional and not just a big old oopsie whoopsie on my part.
We had to leave everyone in a state of suspension.
Couple of things to note as we go into this, because it's obviously going to be a very different style of episode, being a follow-up. If it's spoilers for the first season, we're just going to assume that you saw it already. If it's something that we talked about in the first episode covering the first season, we're just going to assume you listened to it already. If you're here listening to us cover season 2, I don't know why you haven't at least listened to us cover season 1. I feel like these are fair assumptions.
So how spoiler-free do we want to go for this one? We can kind of lay it out all on the table.
I'm not super gonna care this time, I'll be honest.
I agree. I think if it's a follow-up episode, people are probably going to watch the full series if they haven't seen either of the episodes and then watch both of them, or people are going to watch the first one, then watch the full thing, and then watch the second one. I don't think there's any reason you would stop mid-anime with a cliffhanger like that.
Yeah, we covered the first season almost a year ago, and we said, hey, go watch this. If you did that, I'm not expecting a lot of you waited for us to do season 2.
You had a whole year. It's not spoilers anymore.
There's not really anything interesting to cover on the production end of things like we normally would at the start of an episode either. Season 2 started a year after season 1 ended, with almost entirely the same creative staff behind it. If you listen to our episode on season 1, you know who did what and yada yada. 1 year after the Black Knights tried and failed to stage a coup against the Holy Britannian Empire, the Japanese people are now under an even tighter rule. Lelouch, having been captured by Suzaku at the end of the last season, was brainwashed to have no memory of his actions of Zero, or of his sister Nunnally, who seems to have been replaced by a younger brother named Rollo. But the Black Knights, being led by C2, find Lelouch, restore his memories, so that he might continue their mission to overthrow Britannia and free Japan.
It's really interesting, too, because at this point we already know that there are a few different ways that memories could be altered, and we don't really know how or why. I mean, we have a gist of, that the Britannian Empire did it, but beyond that, we don't really have an understanding of how this came to be and how many people's memories have been altered, but it starts so weird, and it's so interesting.
For the first, half of the first episode, I was on the edge of my seat. I was just what's going on? What's happened here? I wanted to have the answers. Hey, so this sucked.
This season as a whole?
The whole thing.
Really?
Code Geass R2 is just, it's terrible. It's so bad. The dialogue is so much more awkward and unnatural. The writing doesn't feel clever anymore. It starts throwing out twists that don't feel earned. The horniness levels have increased significantly. There's a weird romance between an adult man and a small child. It's super racist against the Chinese. They introduce way too many characters. It ruins its own power system at one point. And worst of all, despite all that, and despite still having some legitimately amazing mech battles throughout, its biggest sin is just being boring. I was struggling through almost every single episode. It is absolutely dumbfounding just how bad this was and how much I did not enjoy it.
I enjoyed it. I don't think I disliked it nearly as much. There were some things that were really weird, like the grown-ass man and the literal child getting married was really weird. I don't don't... It could have been worse, but it also could have not happened at all. Or just not been romantic. There was no reason for that to be romantic. It could have just been platonic, and it would have been fine.
We'll cover the weird thing with the Chinese Empress later on, believe me.
I found, like, the first half of it a lot weaker than the second half of it. Toward the end, I thought it took a lot of really interesting turns. I mean, there were points where it got to be, like, there is too much going on and it's difficult to follow at times.
Oh,
because there's a lot of, in this season, there's a lot of characters and factions switching sides more so than the first season.
Yeah, I will later on give it praise where it is due. There are some points where it's like, no, yeah, that was actually good. There is still some good in this season, but the bad so massively outweighs the good, it is hard to enjoy it.
I disagree. I think, for me, I enjoyed a lot of trying to figure out what was going on before it happened, but I'm someone who really enjoys that aspect of stuff, and I know that's not everyone's sort of thing. Also, I liked that there were fewer slice of life episodes. That was one of my bigger faults with the first season, is that I didn't like how the pacing would be really fast and then really slow and then really fast and then really slow.
I do think the pacing is somewhat improved. You are right on that. Let's kind of start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because as early as the first episode, I was concerned. Because they show that after the Black Rebellion, Britannia has escalated to stuff like televised public executions and selling off Japanese women as basically slaves. And a big thing that we talked about in season 1 was how surprisingly and upsettingly accurate the show was at portraying stuff like genocide and racism as stuff. But when you have Colin show up undercover as a slave girl at a casino wearing a sexy bunny outfit, and they're still sexualizing the hell out of her and all the other girls there, it stops feeling like they're trying to do anything respectable, and it just comes off as exploitative and gross.
I definitely can see that, and I wish that Colin as a character was treated with more respect, considering how much intricacies there are to her character. But then she's kind of just shoved in as fan service consistently.
Last season, like, yeah, she got over-sexualized a lot, sure.
She
but she
answered
still was like
a phone in the goddamn shower.
Yeah, but like, she was still a semi-interesting character and a badass fighter. This season, she just kind of feels like the girl one, and even spends like 7 fucking episodes as a damsel in distress waiting for Lelouch to rescue her.
I would say she both is a damsel in distress, but also is kind of twisting that in a way, but not in a way that's significant enough to give her agency.
Yeah. Anyway, we mentioned how the season starts with Lelouch having been brainwashed, right? Well, don't worry too much about that, because he gets his memories restored by the end of the first episode. He quickly gets to work freeing all of the other members of the Black Knights who were captured after he abandoned them to go save Nunnally during the Black Rebellion. And after being rescued, they're all understandably like, hey, why should we still follow you? You ditched us and we lost, motherfucker. Zero's answer is pretty much just, I don't feel like telling you. And they're like, yeah, okay, fair, nice to have you back, Zero. It feels like they were in such a rush to return to the status quo, it made the whole time skip feel unnecessary to me.
Is that when he, like, hands them a gun and is like, if you think you can do it, take me out, and they don't? Or is that at a different point? I think
so. It is when it's when they were all getting ready to have, like, the televised firing range execution, and he rescues them all, and they're like, hey, thanks for saving us, where the fuck have you been?
Right.
But his response is just, I'm Zero, you should listen to me, and they're like, we love you, Zero! It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that feels so long ago now.
Yeah, we pushed this episode, taking the curtain back a bit. We had to push recording this episode back a couple of times because of real life busyness and whatnot.
Also, so much happens in this show.
So much happens. And also, me personally, again, I was just around the halfway point. I was struggling to get through every single episode. It felt like such a goddamn slog. So yeah, the first couple episodes are like 2 months ago for us. Now, apparently, a lot of this earlier stuff I'm complaining about is the result of R2 being moved to a different time slot than the first season, like a more primetime slot. And the higher-ups wanted it to be accessible to new viewers, even if they hadn't seen what came before. Does this explain a lot of the weird creative choices? Sure. Do I think it forgives the questionable writing? Not really.
Yeah, it does explain it, though, for sure.
The first third of the show, relatively inoffensive. It's still a downgrade from anything in the first season, but there's at least one moment per episode where I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that was cool. But it's around episode 9 when the Black Knights make a deal with China to emigrate Japanese citizens that I started to have a bad time. You get introduced to the Chinese Empress, who's a 12-year-old girl and has a romance with this dude in his 20s, and they really want you to be invested in it.
Yeah.
Like, they only portray it as this, like, sweet, heartwarming thing, which, they've got this, like, kind of master-servant thing, like, he's her loyal retainer, and it's kind of hard to explain in any way that doesn't make it seem gross, kind of because it's gross. But there was a way they could have done it where it could have been sweet if it was just, like, a childhood friend thing.
Or like a brother-sister thing.
It's just, yeah, but they very implicitly make you realize, like, oh no, this is a romantic thing. This man is in love with this child. This child is in love with this adult man.
No, I'm saying that's what they could have done, is they could have done, like, this is a protective older brother that she never had sort of thing. Like, there are so many directions you could take it.
Yeah, but they didn't, and it's bad.
Agreed. I'm saying it was so easy. They had the option right there. It could have been a parallel for Lelouch and Nunnally. It's right there.
Okay, that was a complaint that I had about season 1. I thought that Lelouch and Nunnally had a weird brother-sister thing going on, which thankfully doesn't go anywhere in this season, but honestly, it's already a parallel to them.
Beanie, did you know that on the TV tropes for the series, there's an entire page for incest subtext?
Oh, God.
That's the level that it is on this show. It is bizarre.
Yeah, because there's also stuff with Rollo, the new, like, he's like an assassin with the power to stop time, because he also has a Geass, and when Britannia wiped Lelouch's mind, they wiped his memories of Nunnally, and they threw Rollo in there so Rollo could keep an eye on him in case his memories came back, but then Rollo decides to follow Lelouch, and they kind of tease some yaoi fan service there with the two of them, which I guess is better, but I don't know, just the fact that I'm about to say the phrase, well, they're not blood related, makes me feel gross and icky.
The only good, like, ship that can come out of this is Lelouch and Suzaku.
Ugh.
I distrust everything else.
Suzaku is so interesting, because that Suzaku was my biggest issue with season 1. I thought Suzaku sucked.
And he gets really interesting this season.
See, you say that, I cannot remember most anything of what Suzaku was doing.
He does a big war crime.
He do a big war crime. I do remember writing a note somewhere about Suzaku where I said, the bootlicker hath become the boot. But I can't remember anything specific that Suzaku does, which I think just empathizes how boring everything is. Like, even if it was bad, it should at least be interesting.
I don't know. I think Suzaku does a decent amount, but a lot, like, I would say, like, the first half of this season is Suzaku just trying to figure out if the Zero that is currently existing is still Lelouch, or if it's a different person. And that kind of drags on for a while. But once it starts escalating, and he starts getting tailed, that's when it gets really interesting.
This is also where Colin gets captured and spends a third of the season locked up waiting to be saved. And I mean, literally, as she's being taken, Zero tells her to wait for him, and she's just like, yeah, okay, and never even attempts to free herself, which I feel like season 1 Colin absolutely would have done.
I mean, there is something to be said about if you're in a situation that dangerous, survival is your first priority, and sometimes that's like playing along. But it does seem a little odd compared to some of her earlier behavior, especially considering that there are points throughout this season where she is imprisoned and she is death-seeking.
Comparing it to her earlier behavior and her earlier character in the first season, and also putting it alongside everything else they do to her character this season, it just feels super disrespectful. And I didn't even like Kalen that much. I didn't hate her, but I didn't think she was great. But I feel so bad for what they did to her in this season.
I do think it's also worth noting that one of her primary character traits is that she's loyal, and she's been given an order by Zero, and that may be influencing her behavior because he said that and because she's so blindly loyal to Zero. Still weird.
Yeah.
But I think that is maybe a way you could look at it through a lens where, like, that's maybe why she's behaving more complacent than she would otherwise.
That's definitely why she's behaving that way, but her becoming, like, this super... Like, there's a difference between her in season 1, where it was like, yes, I trust Zero, I trust that he has our best interests at heart, and he knows what we need to do to succeed, versus this, where she's kind of just devolved into being his fangirl, sort of. That's maybe oversimplifying it a bit, but it feels different.
I think that's a little bit oversimplification, because she is resisting torture. She is... Like, she's not completely helpless. She's doing some things. She's resisting torture. She's trying to put herself in situations where she'll die if she realizes, oh, they're going to be getting information out of me. But also, like, that doesn't excuse the writing and the fact that they kept her there so long. The writing is more of what I have an issue with than her behavior in prison.
I would argue those are the same thing, but I see your point.
Because I think the way that she behaves when she's there is understandable, but the circumstances that left her in there so long makes it feel like they forgot about her and then came back to her.
Yeah.
Like, oops, we forgot Colin. She's hanging out with Suzaku, I guess.
She's chatting up Schneisel.
Mr. Schnitzel.
Or no, not Schneisel, the new guy,
Gino.
the blonde boy.
I kept mixing them up. They look so similar.
Yeah. There's too many fucking characters. Hey, you remember that one dude who was like a feral blood knight who only enjoyed killing, and that was his single character trait?
Guy? Yeah.
And he existed
The
for
vampire.
3... Yeah, he existed for 3 episodes and then disappeared. That was pointless, wasn't it?
He didn't disappear, he got murderated.
Well, I mean, he disappeared from the story because he got
Oh.
murderated.
That really just, that he felt more like a plot device than a character.
That happens a lot. We also need to talk about the High Eunuchs. There has always been a history with anime having stereotypical portrayals of Chinese people, but it's usually just down to them being dressed in a tangjong and knowing kung fu. But Japan has a long history of racism and prejudice against mainland Chinese people, going all the way back to like the fucking 1600s or something. Now, we are 2 white people living in North America talking about the intricacies of race relations on the other side of the world, which usually would mean jack shit. But I feel like you don't need to look too hard at the cartoonishly evil council of eunuchs secretly puppeting their country from the shadows, who all speak in silly high voices and sell out their people at the drop of a hat, to see that maybe possibly there's some less than appropriate racial motivations going on at the creative level.
So I did read people talking about how there's supposed to be a direct reference to the High Eunuchs in The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I have not read and cannot speak to. I don't know if that helps or makes it worse, but I did see people saying that.
I saw something about that as well. I think they're supposed to be based on, like, there was an actual, like, council of 12 eunuchs in ancient China, like, thousands and thousands of years ago or whatever. But even if it is based on a real historical thing, it does not feel like it's being done in good faith at all.
No. And, like, I think what it's more trying to do is it's trying to be referential to something of Chinese origin that is highly impactful, but it completely comes off in a way that feels disrespectful from an outside lens.
I feel so strongly on this, I'm just gonna flat out say it. I think at least a couple of people on the Geass creative staff are racist against Chinese people. I'm just gonna flat out say it. I don't give a shit.
I don't have enough context, and I know that it's playing a lot off of existing tropes, so I don't feel like I can speak to it unless I actually do a deep dive. It feels
That's
icky.
the point I'm trying to make. I don't think you need to be an expert on these racial politics to look at this and see, this is maybe inappropriate. Also, that whole conflict culminates with Lelouch going, hey, your leaders are all evil and gross. Let me, the good guy from the good country, help you overthrow them. And that felt super questionable.
There's a lot of of things that feel really questionable in this show if you stop and think about them a little bit.
Now, I'm gonna keep complaining for a bit longer.
Go for it. Follow your heart.
No matter how mad this show made me, I'm gonna give it credit where it deserves it. Like I said earlier, all of the mech battles are still absolutely stunning. I think this has some of the best animation of both seasons in some of the fights, especially near the end. They look incredible. A lot of the mech designs are also really good. We get introduced to a whole lot of new ones, and they all look really cool. Even though the scripts are a lot more awkward now, most of the actors still do a great job with what they're given. Big shout outs to Johnny Young Bosch as Lelouch once again, but I also really liked Spike Spencer as Rollo, who played Shinji in the older Ava dubs.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really cute, actually, that Rollo was Shinji. I love that.
There's a couple of scenes that still manage to be pretty impactful, like Lelouch fruitlessly trying to use his Geass to command Shirley to stay alive after being shot, or Rollo's big heroic sacrifice. Like, those still hit pretty well, despite everything around them.
I love Rollo.
Rollo was really fun.
Rollo's the best part of the season, dare I say.
I can agree with that. No, there is some legitimately good stuff in this show, despite its flaws. But again, its flaws are just so overwhelming that I couldn't look past them. Anytime something actually good or cool happened, I could feel myself getting angry that I didn't enjoy it more than I did because of the rest of the show just left a bad taste in my mouth.
Interesting. No, I was pretty on the edge of my seat for the last half of it, I would say. But I do have a pretty high bullshit tolerance.
You do. This is proving that. I would like to read to you a couple of notes that I took during my watch through. This one I took during episode 19. I wonder if I could get away with just not watching this anymore. I'm so tired. I'm so disappointed. There's nothing that could happen in the last few episodes that will redeem this for me. It's just awful. I can't think of a more fitting review than I couldn't be bothered to finish this because it was so bad.
That's crazy.
That is not an exaggeration. I came so fucking close multiple times to DMing you and just being like, can we just not? Do we have to?
What events and what episode were happening that made you feel that way?
Let me check. Let me pull up the other notes I had. It was episode 19. That was the one where you had Nina being sad because her kill everyone gun actually killed everyone, and it is revealed that Lelouch was Zero and that he had the Geass powers, and they're like, hey, your leader isn't super smart, he's actually got badass superpowers, and that's bad.
And the Black Knights are being turned against Zero. Okay.
Yeah, it was all just really stupid. A later note that I had during episode 21, it's legitimately, and without exaggeration, impressive just how little I care about what's happening right now. Even without any sort of character investment, you'd think I'd at least be wowed by how buck wild all these twists and turns are, but nope. I think Code Geass has managed to kill my sense of joy.
My god.
I was having a bad fucking time, man.
Bad time. I wish I could be, watching this beside you so we don't have to, talk about it after the fact, after you were miserable all this time. So I could, tell you all the crazy shit that I was thinking while this was going on and how great of a time I was having.
Laurel, I'm happy for you. Do not let any of my complaints take away your own personal joy. But Jesus fucking Christ, this was bad.
No, you're not taking away my joy. I wish I could have, been there to help you through it.
I needed emotional. This show gave me a need for emotional support.
I'm your guardian angel of anime bullshit. I do feel there's a lot of really strong foreshadowing and a lot of strong use of irony and, juxtaposition of characters. I think there's stuff there. I just don't think it's necessarily in the events that are taking place. It's more about the character writing. It's more about the narrative as a whole and the idea of writing a tragedy. It's, more of a meta-level writing than, actual, chronological narrative writing, which I think is why it appeals to me, but kind of falls flat as a story at times.
The place that it does succeed the most when it comes to things like you're talking with the foreshadowing and character and everything, the biggest success of the show is actually the ending. For all of my incredibly justified bitching and complaining, I do think the actual ending is just legitimately great. It's clever, it hits emotionally, it's a satisfying conclusion for both Lelouch and Suzaku. It's really, really good shit. It's not worth sitting through the rest of the show for, but if I'm I'm going to praise it where it's deserved, I think the wrap-up was really, really well done.
I gotta ask, did you see it coming?
Not initially, but at a certain point, when a certain person shows up near the end in a certain outfit, that is when I was like, oh, this is what this has been leading up to. Okay, I know what's about to happen. That's actually fucking rad.
So I had kind of figured out it was going to happen when I realized, like, when the Black Knights were starting to turn against Lelouch, and he was just letting it happen. I was like, this doesn't seem like something Lelouch would do. He's planning something here.
I do question how far back, this is hard to talk about without spoilers, but I do question how far back that goes, because I think it initially starts out where he has kind of lost control of the situation.
They literally, like, name drop Zero's Requiem several episodes before it happens. Like, you hear Lelouch and Suzaku talking about it back and forth.
Oh, you're right, yeah. Okay, so that's even more successful than I thought, so good on you, show.
Yeah, like, I think there's a lot of, like, really great foreshadowing, but I think the execution of the actual things that are happening are not always there.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the use of dramatic irony in this show is brilliant, I think, personally. Because there's so much that the audience knows that the characters don't know that make it so tragic in the moment and make it so emotional when you're watching it, because you know that it's gonna fuck Lelouch up, or it's gonna fuck Suzaku up, or whoever, because you know and they don't.
I wonder, this is occurring to me now, I wonder how differently I would feel if we had just watched everything all at once, and I didn't give myself like 9 months of build-up between season 1 and 2 for things to continue. I wonder if I would feel less sour on certain things if we had just watched both seasons straight through.
I do also think it's something that you're going to get more out of if you rewatch it, because you're going to see more of the stuff they set up in advance. It seems something that would be enjoyable to rewatch to some extent. Maybe not every episode, but I did think it was really interesting for them to start discussing, like, nuclear warhead parallels. I thought that was an interesting direction to address power scale, because that feels like a pretty realistic way to address military power scale by having it escalate in ways that are sort of parallel to real-world events and horrors. And I think they're presented in a way where they're adequately terrifying.
If anyone is gonna do a nuclear war parallel and do it well, it's gonna be Japan.
I also feel like we have to talk about Nanali towards the end, because they do some real questionable things with her.
No one by the end of the show is a good person.
I don't mean that as much as I mean questionable writing choices, because I love that nobody in this show is a good person. I don't feel good about the direction they went with Nanali.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I agree.
There are some, like, they could have done worse, but there is an implication that I couldn't shake that disability can be overcome with sheer willpower, and I don't think that that's a healthy message to be communicating.
That one does feel less egregious than, like, the racism and other things. That one feels more like an accidental message than something they're actually trying to push at the very least.
Oh yeah, I think it's irresponsible. Now that we've watched the full show, did you feel like there was a certain turning point where Lelouch went from sympathetic to unsympathetic to you?
Oh.
And when was it?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Oh boy.
Because that was something we had alluded to in the first episode, but we couldn't really come to a decisive conclusion because we hadn't seen the full thing.
Yeah, and that's hard for me to answer because, to be clear, I don't like being negative all the time, but it's hard for me to pinpoint when I stopped thinking he was sympathetic, because whenever it was, I think far before that, I just kind of stopped caring.
So the apathy overtook you before Lelouch became unsympathetic?
I feel like such a downer. This sucks. I hate what Geass R2 has done to me as a person.
I think it's interesting when we have episodes where we have really different takes, though. I think that makes for a more interesting podcast, so I welcome it.
Oh, for sure. One of these days I want you or Maymay to be the one who's having a bad time.
I hate to tell you this, I'm very easy to please.
I mean, if I'm thinking about it objectively, it's probably near the midpoint whenever they're in China, and he just kind of starts letting his forces be used as human shields against giant laser beams.
Okay, because I have a bit of a controversial take on this.
Okay.
I don't think Lelouch ever became unsympathetic to me. I felt sympathetic to him the whole time. He's a terrible person. Everyone in the setting is a terrible person. That's kind of the point of the narrative.
You know, I can get behind that, yeah.
Gosh, I sure am bored. My favorite podcast only uploads every other week, so all I can do until the next episode comes out is cry into my Haruko Haruhara body pillow.
Reverse those tears back into your eye holes, sad listener person.
We're here to solve all your sadness problems.
And also promote ourselves financially.
Oh my gravy! It's Beanie, Laurel, and Maymay from the Weeb Years, my favorite anime podcast I was just crying about.
Silly listener person, didn't you know that the Weeb Years has a Patreon with tons of exclusive bonus content?
You get access to exclusive recordings and videos, read the notes we take while doing research,
Plus, you can get new episodes 3 days early. That makes you better than everyone else for 3 whole days.
Wow, that all sounds so cool. I wish I had the $100 a month it costs to access all those amazing extra goodies.
Silly listener person, you can access all that fantabulous bonus material for only $5 a month.
Sugoi!
Haha, never say that again.
Just go to patreon.com/theweebyears to cure all your boredom and sadness forever.
Sorry about your wall, by the way.
Alright, time for the retro views. Last few episodes, we've done some silly stuff with it, gone a little off script compared to usual. This is just classic retro view segment. I've got 2 different reviews from my anime list users from back when season 2 aired in 2008. I've got one where they recommended it, and one where they didn't recommend it. We're going back to basics, baby.
Baby.
This is the positive review for R2. During the course of the series, I was starting to wonder if the writers were big Shyamalan fans. The number of twists and gotcha moments were starting to get almost tiresome, but then they were wrapped up nicely at the end. I'm sure a lot of fans will be disappointed at the ending, but it's a really good one, and the most satisfactory one that could be reached by that point. I also felt that the part of the series around episode 20 was written by someone who hated the end of Evangelion as much as I did, and seemed to be a combination tribute/up yours moment. I'll be honest, I kind of just included this one because I really want to hear your thoughts on that, seeing as how you're the Ava head.
The Ava head?
It's also not capitalized in the way that it would be the title, so when they say, written by someone who hated the end of Evangelion, I don't know if they're talking about the end of the show or the film End of Evangelion.
Oh, that is weird. I understand what they're alluding to because there are similarities between the Thought Elevator, the Sword of Akasha, and the Human Instrumentality Project. But, okay, you're drawing a comparison between 2 things with similar psychological, philosophical concepts, ending in different ways. Alright.
I will say it has been very entertaining for me, now that I have finally seen Evangelion, watching other things, and it's like, wow, when people talk about Evangelion influencing other things, they weren't kidding. This is so fucking blatant. It's hilarious. The Thought Elevator, that is almost exactly the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it's replace Kaoru with Lelouch's mom, and there you go. But weird hill to die on in the review when there's so many other things to talk about.
You gotta remember that these reviews are usually significantly longer, and I'm just taking out the interesting portions.
Oh.
I mainly just wanted to hear your take on their Evangelion comment. They had a lot more to say, but it was mostly just this has some flaws, but I think it is good and worth watching.
I also think that when they say that, the end upset fans, or the end would be upsetting to fans, it's if that ending upsets you, you weren't fundamentally watching this show for the intended purpose.
They were right. That is something I saw a lot. A lot of people thought the ending was very unsatisfying, which I will disagree with. I think the ending is, the best part.
I can't, I couldn't see it ending any other way. The episodes leading up to the last episode, I was okay, this is going to be some sort of, not necessarily tragedy, but there's going to be some sort of big payoff for all of the things that have been happening, because the alternative would be way less satisfying. What are you talking about?
I don't want this to come off too mean, but I think a lot of watchers just wanted Lelouch to win.
He did.
Well, when, like, he just becomes the ruler of the world and gets to control everything and that's it.
That's boring.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't want it to sound mean, but I think that is what people wanted.
You want
was just a baseline, oh, my protagonist wins, yay.
I feel like I watched a different show than some of the people who talk about watching this show.
I feel like that happens a lot to us, honestly.
I feel it especially with this show because I think people just... I think the themes entirely have gone over some people's heads that were core themes to this show.
Now, the negative review that I have pulled for this, I'm in love with this. It's great. Code Geass R2 is, in essence, the most resounding travesty in the history of Japanese animation, and proof that anime fans will watch anything if it panders to them enough. It is to anime what Heroes is to US television, except that when Heroes became terrible midway through, the viewers abandoned the series. This monstrosity only got more popular in the same situation. It's truly baffling. Interjecting a little bit, this happened with the last review and them mentioning Shyamalan, but like, God, Shyamalan mentioning Heroes, these are all so timely. I love it. It's great.
Shyamalan's still making movies.
Yeah, but he's not a meme the way he used to be. Code Geass attempts, and apparently succeeded, in appealing to every kind of anime fan. The series was fairly consistent and balanced during its first season, but the follow-up did nothing but shine spotlights all over its cliches and pandering features. The character designs become more fan-servicey and clampy, drawing in boys and girls. The robots suddenly evolve from bipedal tanks to laser-spamming, transforming, energy shield-bearing monstrosities. The genre fluctuates between melodrama, politics, comedy, fan service, romance, science fiction, psychological thriller, school stories, and what have you, depending on the episode. It just doesn't work. Taniguchi and the writers had no interest in being original or telling a cohesive story here, and instead set their eyes on making tons of cash for Sunrise. Now, that is an incredibly inflammatory statement, which does have some truth to it. I found multiple things where the creators fully admitted, like, yeah, no, we were trying to make this as marketable as we could.
There's one specific thing in that review that I'm taking issue with. Can you figure it out, Beanie?
Were you a big fan of Heroes Season 3?
No. The fact that they said that clamp designs are a negative? What the fuck are you talking about? Hello?
Okay, that I will disagree with them there too. The clampy designs are very fun.
I understand the other sentiments, and I agree that it feels like it's meant to be very palatable, especially with the inclusion of like the fan service and the slice of life elements.
It also ties into that thing from earlier about how that it was on a more like primetime time slot.
Yeah.
There was a point where like I felt that there was such a stark difference between seasons 1 and 2 that I was thinking to myself like they must have like changed writers or directors or something. Like there must have been some big creative change that caused this. And I was technically right in the end. It was like executive meddling and the studio being like, we need to be more marketable, blah, blah, blah. But it's all the exact same writers, exact same episode directors and everything.
That makes sense to me, actually. Because it does just, I don't know, even a lot of the stuff from season 1 to me felt very pandering. Like, none of the fan service is necessary or furthers anything, and it's not like, it doesn't feel like the people who are making it are enjoying the fan service. They feel like, okay, let's draw a boob because we have to. It's very like, you know, like you can tell when fan service is made with love and when it isn't.
There's a portion in like the last or second to last episode where all of the big fights are going on and everyone is proclaiming their worldviews and proselytizing to each other. And there's a point where Colin is fighting Suzaku and Colin is, I don't remember what it was because I stopped giving a shit, but Colin is trying to make this big, like deep point and the camera is just on her butt.
Yeah, it's like, I think back to Golden Boy and like how sexy the women in that are because like they're having a good time with it. They're having fun with it. The women are usually interested to some extent. It doesn't feel exploitative. And then there's Code Geass, which is like the fan service doesn't feel thematically appropriate and it doesn't feel like there's any effort put into it. It feels like they traced scenes in a couple points.
It's marketable.
It's so weird. I know it's marketable, but it's so weird.
Well, I just mean that's what the difference is. Like, there's no love in it. It's just we know that titty make money, so let do titty.
Let do titty.
Now, at the end of our last episode talking about Season 1 of Code Geass, our consensus was, despite some flaws, it was really good, and we advocated for people to go watch it. I now take that back. Code Geass R2 has retroactively ruined the first half of the show for me, and I no longer think it is worth anyone's time.
Damn!
Fuck this show. I really need to be clear, like, I'm not trying to be silly, I'm not trying to exaggerate for effect. Legitimately, I just hated this, and I don't think it's worth watching. I don't think Season 1 is worth watching because it's not a complete story, and the completion that you get sucks.
I guess the other question is, do you think it's important enough in anime communities that people are going to be missing out if they haven't seen this and are watching other things?
Not really, honestly. Like, I don't... It is very big and important from a historical context, but really its important historical context is just how fucking massive and popular it was.
Yeah. And it was really popular in the West.
Yeah.
Is also probably worth noting there as well, because this is what I remember, like, you would go to the mall and you would see fucking shirts with Lelouch on them at Hot Topic.
Oh yeah, no, just like the worldwide success is his most notable thing, but there's nothing the show itself does that's really worth analyzing, which is a huge disappointment. I really, really liked Season 1. I am legitimately upset about how bad this was.
I think I do recommend this. Actually, I think it's a good early anime for people to watch who are not as into anime. It'll kind of microdose them on a bunch of the things that they can expect from anime as a whole.
Microdosing bullshit. Building up an immunity.
Microdosing anime bullshit. And also, it's a good introduction, I think, to mech. Because it's not tremendously long, but it's decently long. And, like, the mechs are really well designed and animated.
They are great designs.
I do think there's a lot of aesthetic appeal in this. And I do think that this would probably go really hard if you're like 15. Like, I bet this is great if you're 15.
Well, yeah, there's titties.
Well, not just because of titties, but because it's very, like, easy to digest fantasy politics. Whereas I think some other things get a little bit more obtuse and difficult to follow. I think this is palatable. I think this is probably something that's best enjoyed when you're a teenager.
If you are a teenager or an adult and you want a good introduction to the mecha genre that has really good designs, really good animation, pretty boys, interesting fantasy politics, and weird metaphysical bullshit, Gundam Double is so much better.
Yeah, I can't say because I haven't seen any Gundam yet. I'm really excited to. But I do think a lot of Gundam and a lot of mecha can be heavy at times, and I think that this is just light enough. Like, there's a lot of emotional twists and turns, but it never feels like too real. At least it didn't for me, because it's always trying to be so marketable.
This isn't a criticism of you, but it's so interesting to me that you're trying to put forth it's palatable and marketable as a positive.
I'm saying that's a positive for someone who's like 15.
Fair. Sorry,
Because they're not
15-year-olds. We're not thinking too highly of you.
Like, I'm thinking of myself when I was 15 and the level of nuance I was capable of. I don't think I would have been able to fully get... Like, I definitely didn't fully get Evangelion at that age. I feel like I would have fully gotten this and fully understood Code Geass if I watched it around that same time, though. This is also so interesting in a Western context, though, because it focuses on what is fundamentally America as a core part of the story, and I think that makes it have more of an impact on people here who are watching it.
I think so, yeah.
It's an interesting perspective shift. Like, I think it's really interesting as a show. I don't know that I would... I give it, like, an 8 out of 10. I don't think it's, like, fantastic, but I think it does a lot of really interesting things and really makes you think about a lot of things. It's a neat little journey.
When we finished watching Season 1 and we finished recording the episode on it, I went online and I put the high-grade Lancelot model kit on my wish list. Halfway through watching this, I took it off of my wish list.
That's so sad.
It is. I'm sad how much I didn't like this.
It's okay. The next mecha thing we watch could be a good one.
The next mecha thing we watch is going to be Gundam. I'm just making us
Yes!
watch Gundam, finally.
I really want to watch Gundam. I am so excited for Gundam. I love political drama. I love war in fiction as a tool for explaining why war is bad in real life.
This was such an unfortunate happenstance for our first follow-up episode. Hopefully we have a much better time. Hopefully I have a much better time whenever we cover End of Evangelion.
I had a great time.
I'm glad you did. And hopefully our audience had a good time listening to this episode, despite it all.
Despite it all.
If you did have a good time and you'd like to see more of us, you can find us at Weeb Ears on Blue Sky.
And if you want to drop a line, let us know anything you really liked, didn't like, suggestions, explanations, or demands to watch the OVAs if they're any good, you can send them to theweebeers@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for listening and spending this time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, share it around, share it to your anime-loving friends, pop it on social media, give us a like and follow, and all that good stuff that make our numbers get bigger. And we will see you again in 2 weeks for our 1-year anniversary.
That's so exciting. I can't wait.
Good night, everyone.
Nobody tell them we already recorded it.